Okay, well, let's call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Nellie, if you could please do a roll call.
Absolutely. When I state your jurisdiction, if you'll please state your name. San Mateo County,
Dave Pine.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Rick DeGolia.
Belmont,
Julia Mates.
Brisbane,
Colleen Mackin.
Burlingame,
Donna Colson.
Colma,
Good evening, Raquel Gonzalez.
Daly City,
Rodas Magwal.
East Palo Alto,
Carlos Romero.
Foster City,
Sam Hendy.
Half Moon Bay,
Harvey Ryback.
Hillsborough,
Larry May.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Betsy Nash.
Millbrae,
Anders Fung.
Pacifica,
Tiger Jazz Twirls Big Stick.
Portola Valley,
I don't think Jeff will make it tonight.
Redwood City,
Michael Smith.
thank you, San Bruno,
Marty Medina.
San Carlos,
Laura Palmer Lohan.
San Mateo,
Rick Bonilla.
South San Francisco,
James Coleman.
and Woodside.
John Carvel.
Thank you. And Director Emeritus,
Pradeep Gupta.
Director Emeritus.
John Keener.
Wonderful. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Right, and I don't know if you got him, but Tom Faria is here also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, welcome everybody to the February Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting. And the first item on the agenda is public comment. If there's any public comment, you can click on the reactions button at the bottom of the screen and your hand will be raised. Okay, I have a couple public comments. Ann Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Ann Schneider. I'm speaking as a resident on something I just wanted to see if Peninsula Clean Energy might look at this in the future. I've been attending a series of webinars hosted by UCLA and other universities on climate resiliency. And one of the topics is cool roofs, which can help reduce the electric demand of a building, a home, a commercial building, or a school. And I've checked with my own city manager about could we require businesses or homes to do it here? And unless it's in the California or the Universal Building Code, it is more difficult, especially for a small city, to look at that. So I was hoping that maybe Peninsula Clean Energy, as they've done so well, we've done so well with REACH codes, might start looking at cool roofs. The other part that's coming out of this research is that actually cool roofs can help our communities on heat, on extreme heat days faster than planting trees can do it, because I'm a big tree advocate, but the cool roofs will actually get the job done quicker, sooner. But all of these issues should be taken into account all at the same time. So I just hope Peninsula Clean Energy, since I'm not a regular attendee, wanted to bring this up and that they might consider it. I did send a note to Jan so that she knew that I would be commenting tonight. Thank you all for what you're doing, and I'm off to watch the school district create district elections. Good luck, you all.
Thank you, Ann. Bart Patoha.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bart Pantoja. I am the business manager, financial secretary, treasurer of the San Mateo County Building and Construction Trades Council. I just want to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I was newly elected a few weeks ago, and also wanted to offer the network of the San Mateo Building Trades Council for any upcoming projects and to open those lines of communication with my office to help facilitate some of these programs. We have over 24 affiliates in the construction trades, with each having hundreds of contractors available to them that we can help make available to these programs. So that's pretty much it. I wish you the best this evening and any forward progress that you get. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Bart. If you could put in the chat your email address maybe phone number that will enable people to easily get in touch with you if they need to.
I can do that.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? I don't see any other public comment at this time. So the next item is to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items. Pradeep.
Motion. So moved.
Okay, I've got a motion from Rick Pcia.
Chair?
Pradeep, and a second from Harvey Roback, but Pradeep, were you a late public comment?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment on one of the agenda items to be
Okay.
approved.
No problem.
That's the item number 4, which
Okay,
is the reach codes extensions.
yes,
And one of those extension is number 4, which is building permitting improvements. And that extension has been proposed for Silicon Valley Clean Energy, where they're going to collect data in terms of what are the permitting processes required for heat pump, water heater, and other reach code electrification processes. And they're going to try to figure out how to make it more streamlined in the future. And I was thinking that's a very good, productive approach. And why are we not including that for PCE, part of the reach code effort? That was my comment, and I would like to ask staff if they were thinking about doing it. If not, can they include it? Thank you.
okay. Does anyone want to respond to that at this time?
I don't know if Raphael is on the call.
I am here. Yes, it is something that we are taking a look at. We didn't feel that we were quite ready to take that step. We have been in dialogue with a number of cities that have been moving to online permitting systems, and it wasn't clear at this point that was something that was worth our investment, but we are going to be looking at it closely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, Betsy.
Thank you. I actually have a very similar comment. I wanted to support the permitting improvements for the San Mateo County region as well. I believe it was actually yesterday we received a note from Silicon Valley Leadership Group that they are sponsoring new housing bill AB 2234, which is actually will modernize the residential building permitting process. And this would be very, very beneficial to be doing this as a region.
Yes, and we can absolutely accommodate if the board wishes an adjustment to the draft contract to that effect. We do plan to take the learnings that SVCE is developing to bring them out into the county in any case.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Betsy. Anders Fung.
Hi, Rick. Thank you, Chair. I just want to comment on the meeting minute on January 27, which is item number 2. It listed Councilmember Ann Schneider as being participant from Millbrae. I like to make sure that the record be corrected. That was actually me on there. I did email the staff about this.
Great. Thank you, Anders. I'm sure Nellie will take care of that. Okay. Are there any other comments on any of the consent items? Could we please do a roll call on the consent and setting the agenda?
Chair DeGolia,
Yes.
just for clarification for cleanliness purposes, can we just confirm that that the intent is to approve the consent agenda with the changes to the minutes that were requested by Member Fung?
Great. Yes, that's fine.
All right.
That was assumed, but better to be explicit.
Okay. I did reflect that change up here in the motion. San Mateo County.
Yes.
San Mateo County. Atherton.
Yes.
Belmont.
Yes.
Brisbane.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Colma.
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley, Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
thank you, South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
So the next item on the agenda is the chair report. All that I have to bring up is this last month at the Atherton City Council meeting, we did a deep dive on reach codes. And I know that there are still a number of our cities that are looking at and planning to implement a reach code provision. And this comes off of the 2019 reach codes, which some of our cities adopted a year or more ago. And what we discovered in the course of looking at this is rather than implementing a reach code now, which would reach beyond the 2019 codes, which are about to be replaced with the 2022 codes as of January 1st, 2023, that it would be wiser for us to wait and to implement the reach codes that we're contemplating in August or September in proximity to our assessment of the new California building code so that they come in at the same time. And I just wanted to let other board members know that that approach, that took a fair amount of understanding and discussion, but we had good advice from Raphael on that, and I think it was a good conclusion, and I wanted to share that with other members of the board. That is all that I have to report. The next item on the agenda is the CEO report.
Thank you. And it's nice to see so many of you here tonight. I'm glad that you were able to make it. It's great when we have good attendance like this. First slide, please. I don't have a long report. The update on the reach codes and the COVID-19 load impacts were in my written report that you all received. So I'll just go over a few things here. We are interviewing a number of candidates for the COO position and hope to be able to bring that to closure in a few weeks. And we are also finalizing the CFO position description and hope to get that posted this week. Next slide, please. Some other updates. We are, thank you for your approval tonight on the consent agenda for the CC Power Long Duration Storage Project. You have given me direction to go ahead and vote tomorrow at the board meeting to approve that project for CC Power. We are not participating in that project as it is another lithium ion storage project, and we're looking to diversify our storage portfolio with non-lithium ion long duration storage options, and we'll be coming back to you in the future as we find other options. We're excited to announce that the enrollment notices have been sent to Los Banos customers, and starting in April, Los Banos customers will start receiving cleaner and less expensive electricity from Peninsula Clean Energy. So we'll be watching that closely and letting you know how that enrollment goes. We are also moving as staff to a remote working policy for the organization, and we'll be updating our employee handbook to reflect this. We are going to be holding our first all staff in-person offsite meeting on March 17th. Very excited to be seeing everyone since it's been 2 years since we left the office thinking it was going to be for 2 weeks. And we're also very excited to be meeting our new staff members. So yeah. One other thing I think I forgot to put on here is that we are providing a letter of support for the Cal CCA Transportation Electrification Bill. And Mark Hirschman will be reaching out to each of your cities to ask that your city also send in a letter of support for this bill. So just wanted to alert you that that will be coming. And then next slide. Upcoming meetings, Citizens Advisory Committees on March 10th, Executive Committee on March 14th, and then our next Board of Directors meeting on March 24th. So happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I don't see any hands up, so I don't see any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the Citizen Advisory Committee report.
Great. Thank you, Chair DeGolia. This is Morgan Chaknova. I'll just briefly share that the annual CAC survey results came back and we had improved results from the prior year. We had a working group annual review and update, and we'll be bringing that updated CAC work plan to the board in March. And then we submitted a formal proposal on decarbonization to the board subcommittee. And so I'll just read that for everyone to be aware. So the Citizens Advisory Committee has reviewed staff's presentation of the draft framework on achieving zero carbon by 2035, and we support the draft plan as proposed, including the scope. We urge action to access capital to enable the 2035 decarbonization plan, including through innovative financing. See, for example, the City of Ithaca, New York's efficiency retrofitting and thermal load electrification program, and Marin Clean Energy, East Bay Community Energy, and Silicon Valley Clean Energy's $2 billion clean energy project revenue bonds, so that our residents can have access to electrification. The sooner, the better. We further urge you to make it easy to take action by expanding access and facilitating robust assistance for those who need it, including for those with lower incomes who will have the most difficulty in making the necessary changes, for example, through direct installation programs. We also urge you to focus on building public awareness through workforce development, education, and motivating adoption through a comprehensive communications campaign. Thank you from the Citizens Advisory Committee. And that's it for my report.
Okay, great. Thanks, Morgan. The next item on the agenda is selection of chair and vice chair of Peninsula Clean Energy Board of Directors, which is an action item. And I think that this is being managed by Julia Mates on behalf of the nominating committee.
That's right. Thanks, Chair DeGolia. The nominating committee, we held nominations open for about a month. And based on the nominations we received, we recommend Rick DeGolia to repeat as chair and Donna Colson to repeat as vice chair.
Okay. If there's any discussion on this, just click reactions and you will raise your hand. And if there's any public comment, you can also click reactions and I will recognize you. I don't see any comments and I don't see any public comment. Okay, Colleen and then Pradeep.
I would just wholeheartedly support that measure. I appreciate the work both of you have done. And I think considering the topics that we'll be undertaking this year, I think that that's a really wise move. I hope you'll both consider continuing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. Pradeep.
I just wanted to echo what Colleen just said. Rick and Donna, you have done wonderfully well in the last year with your stewardship of PCE and where we are going now. And I'm very, very happy that you have been nominated for the next year, the team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think the motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion to re-elect Chairman DeGolia and Vice Chair Colson.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I missed, that's a motion from
Yes.
Gus McGall, and what about the second? Was that Colleen? I wasn't
Yes.
sure.
It
Okay,
was.
great. Okay. If we could do a roll call, please.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley, Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside.
Yes.
And just circling back to Colma. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is authorization of new PCE rates, which will be effective April 1st, with a net 5% discount in generation charges for Eco Plus compared to PG&E generation rates.
Leslie will be giving this presentation.
Should I bring up my own slides?
Sorry, I'll share real quick. Thought I was sharing.
Thanks. Next slide, please. So as we've been discussing, there is a rate change coming from PG&E. This is the ERA generation portion of the rate, which impacts the generation and the PCIA charges, which are the parts of the PG&E rates that impact what PCE charges for our customers. So those rates that will be going into effect March 1. We don't have all the details on all the tariffs yet, all the updated tariffs yet from PG&E, but we do have the sort of broad system average category. So I'm going to go over that tonight. We will be getting the detailed tariffs probably right before the rates go live, so possibly Friday or Monday. And then we'll work to do our calculations for all of the different individual tariffs. But what we do know is that the PG&E generation rates are decreasing quite a bit. You know, across all rate classes, the PCIA rates are decreasing a lot across all rate classes. And the net impact of both of those actions means that for our current rate schedule in San Mateo County, we will be adjusting our rates up a little bit to still maintain that 5% value proposition. But what it will also do is help mitigate some of the revenue shortfall that we saw this last year when the current, throughout 2021, when the current PCIA vintage for 2016 was very high and the PG&E generation rates are much lower. PCE had to lower our rates quite a bit last year in order to accommodate both of those. And so we've been running at a bit of a revenue shortfall this year. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, this is how Peninsula Clean Energy goes about creating our rate that we charge. We start with the PG&E generation rate, back out 95% so that we're making sure that we get a 5% discount on the PG&E generation rate from our customers. Subtract the current vintage PCIA, the franchise fee, and then the end result is the Eco Plus rate for that particular customer group. Next slide. So just to give you a preview of the system average generation rate. So this is looking at it at the customer class level, not at all of the individual peak, off-peak, summer, winter, and variations of all the different customer classes. Across the board, the generation rates are going up you know, in about 30%. So a little bit more than, you know, 32%, 33%, some cases, in one of the V19 tariffs, 38%. But it's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty decent increase on the generation side. So this is from when PG&E last increased the generation rates last year to this year. Next slide. And then the PCIA. So this is the PCIA based on the 2016 vintage. So that's the vintage that we base our San Mateo County territory rates off of, because that's when San Mateo County exited Peninsula Clean Energy Service. I'm making that distinction now because you'll see at the end of this, we're actually going to be authorizing creation of two rate schedules, one for San Mateo County based off the 2016 vintage, and then one off of Los Banos, a new rate schedule based off the 2021 vintage. So a little bit of a distinction between those two, but the PCIA, you know, is going down significantly. There was that really large increase last year that was, you know, primarily in regards to trying to do a catch up for a shortfall collection. Previous years, you know, this year it's being adjusted down quite significantly. As we know, the PCA is pretty volatile, and it's a pretty volatile moving target. But this move down for us is good for you know, our revenue collection, because we'll be able to adjust up a little bit, but still provide a value to customers from what they would be being charged from PG&E. The next slide. So all of what does that look like overall to customers and how their rates are changing overall? Because we know customers don't really look at, you know, generation changes and transmission distribution changes. They kind of look at it all together as my electric bill and what's happening with my electric bill overall. So there was already a change on the distribution side of the bill on January 1. So this is the change we're talking about here is just from what does the increase that's happening now in March, how is that going to increase the overall electric charges for folks based on the changes that they already experienced starting January 1st? So right now we're looking at an average increase for residential customers about 8.5 or 8.7%. Small commercial customers 8.5%. You know, so in that neighborhood, the higher increases on some of the larger commercial accounts at 15 and 16% over, but the overall system average increase is right about 10.5% when you average out across all of the different rate classes. So next slide, please. So what we're looking for tonight is authorization to move forward once we get the actual detailed tariff sheets from PG&E to make the adjustments to our existing rate schedule for San Mateo County based using the 2016 vintage to make sure that we have an equal plus rate for customers that provides a 5% discount from PG&E, and then also implementing a new rate schedule for the Los Banos customers so that when they start service April 1 this year, we will have a rate established for them that is also a 5% discount based on the 2021 PCIA rate. And if for approval, we'll be going live with both of these rate schedules April 1st. Are there any questions?
Question from John Carville.
Yes. In your slide, you noted 8.7% rate increase for typical residential person, but that was versus 2 months ago. So that's a 8.7 over a 2 month period. What is it versus a year ago, given we already had an increase? Or
yeah, so it's a little bit, it's a little bit hard, but it's more like about 15-ish% overall, because it's that T&D increase already went into place. But if you added that cumulative together, it's about 15% overall. But that T&D increase, you know, is not something that we have any control over, and our rates don't. Whatever we do, is very separate from what's happening on the T&D side of the bill. But yes, it is an overall increase to customers of about 15%. When you look at what happened before, you know, on the T&D side of the bill, plus what's happening now.
So it's really on an annual basis, we're looking at a 15% increase. It just took 2 steps, about half of it in January and the other half now.
Essentially, yeah, and it's not, and that's not typical. This is a much larger increase this year than we normally see. There's, you know, a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes with you know, truing up different you know, issues, settling different rate case stuff, filings, but that's essentially what was going on this year. It was a much larger increase than they normally have.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and half of that, John, is going into the transmission and distribution, so it completely bypasses PCE. It just is straight PG&E for their wire management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is Donna.
Thanks. Leslie, thank you for this on Eco Plus. As a Eco 100 person, maybe can you just highlight what will happen to Eco 100 rates quickly, or go back or
So
review?
so the Eco 100 is still going to be a 1 cent, you know, surcharge. So we're not increasing anything about Eco 100. It's still going to be a 1 cent per kilowatt hour addition to whatever our Eco Plus rate is, to whatever rate you're taking. So we're not making any changes with the Eco 100 rate. It'll still be a 1 cent adder if you, so because we're not making any changes with it, you know, the relative sort of increase is still the same, because we're not going to change anything about Eco 100.
Okay, so it'd be fair to say if somebody asked, what would my Eco 100 rate go up to? It's about the same percentage, maybe a little, depending on what that 1 cent is on the basis of the numbers, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a little less.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a little less.
It's actually
Yeah.
a little bit less. Yeah, it's a little bit less.
It's like maybe 8% or 8.5 or something. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Pradeep?
Yeah, just a comment regarding the future directions of rate setting for PCE. Right now, we are very much tied to PG&E rate structure by following their division of customers and the way they cost those different ways. Perhaps in the future sometime, we should be looking at potential our own rate structuring situation, plus perhaps cost-based rates rather than following PG&E generation rates and deducting 5%, because overall the customer should be very satisfied that we at PCE are just providing service at almost cost basis rather than making any money out of it. Thank you.
Yeah, Pradeep.
Thank you.
Actually, we did talk about, Leslie and I talked about this today, about starting with a cost of service study for Peninsula Clean Energy to look at making our rates cost-based as opposed to being tied to PG&E. A couple of other CCAs have started doing that, and we're going to check with them to see what their experience has been with that. But that is in our overall plan to start looking into that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to take any public comment that there is on this matter. And I have a public comment from Mark Roost.
Thank you. And going along with that cost-based idea, 2 things. One is, are we on a general trend downward of the PCIA? As these old contracts run out. The other is, if we actually start planning future technologies, like tentative, preliminary planning or tentative planning of future technologies, that could create some very interesting things, possibilities for modeling on a cost basis and comparing that to the following PG&E basis. And we could even use some of the results of that modeling when we actually are ready to move. We could use some of the results of that modeling to help sell it to the public.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Is there any other public comment? Okay, I don't see any, and this is an action item, right, Leslie? So we need a motion to approve the rate change and the implementation of the new rate that we're proposing to set with this resolution for Los Banos.
Tom for Rio Los Banos. Make the move to approve.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
And the second was from Dave.
Dave Fine.
Okay, great. Could we do a roll call, please?
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont.
Yes.
Thank you. Brisbane,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley, City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Please reflect a yes vote on the part of Brisbane. I did say yes.
Thank you.
And you can do yes on Colson. I think the two of us were overlapped a little bit. Sorry, Colleen.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Muted. The next agenda item is an update on Peninsula Clean Energy labor policy.
Great, thank you. We provided this report to the executive committee last week, and we wanted to bring this to the full board to update you on our labor policy and the state of labor for utility scale renewable energy projects and local energy program projects. So if we can go to the first slide, please. Just wanted to remind people or reacquaint people of our policy 10 for a sustainable workforce. And that policy says that we desire to facilitate and accomplish the following objectives. First, support for and direct use of local businesses. Second, support for and use and direct use of union members from multiple trades. Third, support for and use of training and state of California approved apprenticeship programs and pre-apprenticeship programs from within Peninsula Clean Energy's service territory. And four, support for and direct use of green and sustainable businesses. We go to the next slide, which talks about what this policy is in regard to power purchase agreements with third parties. And these are typically the large scale renewable energy projects. So for those power purchase agreements with third parties, we usually issue an RFO, and the policy states that we will collect information from respondents to any bidding or RFP, RFO process regarding their past, current, or planned efforts by project developers and their contractors to employ workers and use businesses from our local Peninsula Clean Energy Service territory, employ properly licensed contractors, utilize multi-trade project labor agreements, utilize local apprentices, pay workers the correct prevailing wage, display power at job sites about prevailing, I think that's supposed to be posters, sorry, display posters at job sites about prevailing wage requirements, provide workers' compensation coverage to on-site workers, and support and use state of California approved apprenticeship programs. So we collect this information from the proposers, and we use this to evaluate the workforce impacts of the proposed projects, along with a lot of other criteria that we use in selecting the best projects to bring forward to you. So the next slide, please. So we wanted to show you the kinds of, under this part of our policy and of what we're seeing in the market. So for power purchase agreements with third parties, this chart shows the percentage of offers with a project labor agreement or prevailing wage. And we've separated it out by technology, and this reflects the information that we received from the most recent request for offer that we issued and received proposals for in January, and also the California Community Power request for offers and the proposals that were received in December 2021. So this is very recent information. And so it shows for geothermal, project labor agreements are not the norm for either in-state or out-of-state projects. For solar plus storage, 80% of the respondents indicated use of a project labor agreement. And I wanted to note that there were 10 smaller solar plus storage projects, less than 8 megawatts each, that indicated they would work with a low income installer and we're not planning to use a PLA. So those projects were not included in this calculation of the 80%. And then all of the other solar plus storage projects that were actually greater than 20 megawatts are included in this, this data here. For standalone storage, for in-state 73%, and for wind 100%. For out-of-state projects, project labor agreements is not typical. However, for prevailing wage, so paying whatever the prevailing wage is for the location of the project, the numbers are quite high for all technologies, both for in-state and out-of-state. So that's the information there. And if we go to the next slide. So this is our policy with regard to energy efficiency projects, which covers the type of projects our energy programs would cover. And so the policy for that is that we will use best efforts to support local businesses, union labor, and local apprenticeship programs. And we'll use best efforts to ensure that each construction contractor or subcontractor utilizes local businesses, union labor, local apprenticeships, and fair compensation practices in their program implementation, including proper assignment of work to crafts that traditionally perform that work. So if we go to the next slide, I think this is my last slide, yes. So right now this applies most directly to 2 of the energy programs that we have implemented. So the low income home upgrade program is a program to serve 200 homes of income qualifying single family homeowners over the next 2 years. And this program was approved by the board back in March of 2021. This is a $2 million program that will run over 2 years to provide home upgrades and electrification measures for these homes. So the minor home repairs, just to make their homes more livable, and then energy upgrades, one type of electrification upgrade, either heat pump, water heater, electric dryer, induction cooktop, or something like that. And the average amount for each home upgrade is estimated at about $6,500 per home, which was estimated to be enough to do a water heater and small repairs in 200 homes. These numbers were developed based on our discussions with our contractor, Richard Heath Associates, and we're trying to ascertain whether we can actually meet the goal of doing 200 homes with this budget, as costs are coming in higher than what we had budgeted. The minor home repairs are being done by El Concilio, which is a local group that works closely with the low-income community. And then the energy upgrades and electrification measures would be done by union contractors. And we have 6 union contractors who are working with us so far for this work. It would be great to have more contractors to get this work done. We did meet with our implementer, Richard Heath Associates, last week, because just to talk to them about this program, because interestingly, well, part of the reason why we hired them is because they are the implementer for 3 of 4 of PG&E's program areas that serve 79,000 low-income customers. So they're kind of the expert in doing this kind of work. For that program, for the PG&E program, they explained to us that they use a general contractor model where the contractor provides full service in language and in culture assistance specifically to address the needs of the low income community, which includes building trust with the customer and providing a single point of contact to ensure there's a positive experience for the customer. And in fact, for this PG&E program for low-income homeowners, PG&E does not have a union requirement. They noted that PG&E utilizes union labor for the larger PG&E infrastructure projects, but not for residential work. So in any event, we're talking to them about options we can have to make sure that we can help the 200 low-income homeowners that is part of our target and is what you as the board approved, and to stay on budget for this program. They did note that in their experience in working with this community, it's very important to try to streamline the customer journey by reducing the amount of customer touches and disruptions, as it can be disruptive for a customer who may have difficulty taking time off from work in order to allow a contractor to come to their home multiple times, or if the homeowner is disabled or elderly. For the EV Ready program, this is a program to install 3,500 electric vehicle chargers over the 4-year period. And some of the projects are using our Trade Ally program, where we are working with union contractors to have them be available to do this work. Others may use their pre-existing contractor relationships, or for public agencies like cities, they may issue a public RFP for the construction on these EV charger projects. And we've been working with the unions to get contractors to participate in this program, and we'd love to have more contractors in order to meet our goal, again, of getting 3,500 EV chargers. As you may recall, this is a very large program. This is our $24 million or $26 million EV charger program, which includes $12 million of funding from the California Energy Commission, and then the remainder of the funds from us. So that's about all I wanted to share in my prepared remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Okay, any questions from members of the board? Rick Pcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my first question goes back to the chart that Jan showed earlier. There we are. And that chart was presented at the executive committee meeting. And I appreciate Jan clarifying on the solar and storage information. That was helpful. But I looked at, and I had a question about the geothermal. And I think I sent you an email asking if you could look closer into that. And you responded that, well, this is the information. So I have some other information that I got because I was curious about this chart. And so I wrote to Thomas Enslow, who works with the law firm and does a lot of PLAs. That's the only reason I went there, right? He actually writes and negotiates a lot of PLAs in the industry, project labor agreements. He's with Adams, Broadwell, Joseph, and Cardozo. And I said, could you have a look at this chart and let me know, what do you think about the numbers shown here? So I'm going to read the response I got. It's not long. It says, excuse me, you asked me to review the below chart claiming that no geothermal projects were constructed under PLAs and claiming that only 43% of solar storage projects are constructed under PLAs. So the PLA percentages on the chart below are either shockingly inaccurate or deliberately misleading, and he goes into detail about this. Over the last decade, at least 95% of all utility scale solar, wind, battery storage, and geothermal projects have been constructed under a PLA. Now, I understand he's talking about real outcomes, and you're talking about information that you got from some people that you asked some questions of. But there's a difference, so I'm going to go on here, okay? Most of the PLAs are private PLAs, directly with the contractor constructing the project. I have direct knowledge of this because my law firm, Adams, Broadwell, Joseph, and Cardozo, has negotiated almost all of these agreements. The 0% number for geothermal underscores the gross inaccuracy of this chart. Our firm alone has negotiated PLAs on dozens of geothermal projects over the past 20 years. For the title of the chart, from the title of the chart, which is percent of offers with PLA and prevailing wage, the staff may be cherry picking statistics by limiting it to offers received by PCE rather than statewide numbers, and including offers that were not accepted. It also appears to be limited to offers that included a PLA commitment in the offer itself. That does not mean the project was not ultimately constructed with a PLA. So that's it. So I want to ask you something. That's that statement, which calls into question, especially the numbers on the geothermal. And what we're talking, there's a difference in the source of this information. What I just read is historical information, the way things have been built here right up to this date, right? And this information is some information you asked people to give to you, which I don't know if it's based on any actual compilation of real numbers of how things have been done. But let me ask you, for instance, on the solar and storage, the top shows project labor agreements 80%, and on the bottom, the prevailing wage chart, it says 100%. So does that mean that in fact, 80% of all the projects were done under a PLA, which all pay the prevailing wage, and then 20% additional of the projects to add up to 100% total were just prevailing wage? Is that what that means?
Okay, first of all, I think maybe there's some misunderstanding as to what we're showing here. So this is information from proposals that we've received for new projects that have not yet been built. So the information that you just shared was for historical projects. And this is from those companies who responded to either Peninsula Clean Energy's request for offer and responded to California Community Power's request for offers for new projects. So this is what came in. So we collect this information from every bidder. They provide this information, and we're just reporting out to you the information that we collected, because as part of our policy, that is our policy. Our policy is to ask the bidders to give us this information. So I'm just reporting out to you, and I show here that the data source is the information from the RFOs that we received in January 22, last month, and the information that CC Power received in December. So there are not a lot of new geothermal projects being built in California or being built anywhere. There's a lot of demand for geothermal right now because of a new requirement that the PUC has made for all LLCs, which requires firm, clean resources, of which geothermal and biomass are the only types of resources who can essentially meet that requirement. So there's a lot of demand for geothermal, for new geothermal right now, and there's very, very limited supply. But that's what we're, I'm not here to debate this. I'm just telling you that this is the information that we collected from those companies who chose to bid in our RFOs.
So I'm just trying to make this chart understandable, put it into context for people who really don't understand much about this industry and or how these things come about. But my question back to my question on solar and storage, prevailing wage, you see a lower chart there, says 100%, right? In state. Up on your PLA chart, it says 80%. Does that mean that 80% of the total number of projects were done under a PLA, and then the remaining 20% were also prevailing wage? Because a PLA is also prevailing wage job. So
as I stated, these are for projects that have not yet been built. So this is what the proposers have said that they will do. So 80% of the projects that were bid into our RFO, new projects for solar plus storage, 80% of those proposers for in-state projects said they were planning to use a PLA. 100% of those proposers said that they were planning to use prevailing wage. None of these projects have been built yet. This is just the information that they provided to us as part of our commitment to our policy to collect this information anytime we put an RFO out there. I'm just reporting the facts of the information that was provided to us.
Yeah, so let me just
I'm not sure about that. I think it may be opinions about how they would like to do it. But because as you said, they haven't been built. Yes, Rick, please.
Yeah, two things. One, I think you're right that with respect to the offers from the PPA partners in solar and storage, 80% of them said they do a PLA, but 100% of them said that they'd pay prevailing wage. So yes, 20% weren't proposing to use a PLA, and yet we're proposing to pay prevailing wage. So I think that's correct. Also, in the course of the negotiations, we ask for a PLA. So even though they don't offer it, the deal may end up having a PLA because we have negotiated for it.
Which is why I wonder why the question's even here. What's being presented? Is there a question here with this? Because
no, I think this is just presenting information that we received because it's apparent to us that there's some difference, particularly between these technologies. And maybe at the end of the day, the lawyer you talked to was working with more established geothermal deals. I'm not sure what that is. I know that we've looked at 2 deals, but this is the information we got. So let me see if there's any other questions. I've got 2 public comments on it. Any other board member questions? Okay, I'll take the public comment now. Mark and then Abe.
Thank you. I initially put my hand up to say, let's see what for, solar and storage or standalone storage. I was curious as to why there were fewer storage from the others, but from the discussion between Rick and the report, this report, I'm noticing it sounds like historically there was a higher commitment to that. There was a requirement almost, or higher commitment. So it sounds like we could use the information that Rick just provided to say, okay, it looks like there's a tendency to pull back on prevailing wage and among standalone storage, and the tendency to pull back on PLAs in the other thing, or to pull back on PLAs, it's even bigger. And that could be something we look at that and say, okay, don't go there. Or we look at that and say, let's interrogate these people and find out why they didn't do it. And try to find out, is there some larger market thing going? And is it because costs have gone up? Or is it because there's a movement to get rid of union labor? Or what's going on? Even if it is just a trim tab or a rudder, it's worth checking out. That's it. Thank you.
Abe?
Yes, good evening. My name is Abe. On the next slide, it showed that there's a request for more, or the next one after that, sorry. A request for more contractors for the low income housing. I've been meeting with the implementer and they are good with the 2 electrical contractors they have now. They do not need more. I've offered more, and just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, great, thank you. I have a comment from John Carville.
And perhaps Abe may have addressed it, but on the same slide where we're looking at having the low income housing, the needing more contractors, it's been thought of relaxing the requirement for local or union contractors in order to meet our needs here, both from a cost and supply of people to do the work. And what does best efforts mean and how flexible is that? Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you, I think that was a question. Can you repeat that question, please? I'm not sure I caught it, what you were asking.
You're on mute, John.
Sorry. One of your earlier slides, you were saying best efforts to have local contractors and union contractors. It appears from this slide that we're having difficulties finding contractors, and the costs have gone up for various reasons to do these programs. Has there been thought to expand the pool of potential contractors to do the work?
That's really a question for the board. So we're presenting to you what our policy is, and we will take direction from the board if you want us to relax any of those constraints.
I think it should be looked at in the composite of trying to achieve our goals, which are multifaceted, of which the supply is one, and producing our outcome for these programs is another.
Okay. Are there any, Donna?
Thank you, Chair DeGolia, and thank you, Jan, for this presentation. It's helpful. I also sort of going on to John's just comment that he just made. We're also getting ready to do a lot of work on our DEAI program, and we're going to be looking at vendors and vendor relationships in that, right? And we have a third-party consultant that's helping us. And I think through some of that work, as it manifests in the next 6 to 12 months, we may have some insight as well into making sure that all of our bidding procedures are inclusive, and that women, minority, veteran-owned firms are also included. So I don't know, Jan, if you have any comment about how that integrates onto this or not, but it seems to me that as we gain more information, we can always massage and update and fine-tune this based on the realities in which we're working and living.
Yeah, well, the next presentation is about the status of their DEAI project. yeah, we'll look to direction from the board subcommittee that's working with us on that and the full board as to how you would like things to be implemented once we get the results of that study.
Okay. Let's see. Rick, do you have another comment?
Well, yes, I do. I wanted to comment that with regards to low-income home upgrade program, Jan did show the policy farther up in the slideshow here. And what it says is PCE will use best efforts, and best efforts include things such as working up a budget, finding contractors to do the work, and also it's a neutral policy. So it doesn't do anything about race or culture or social anything. It's just a neutral policy. It refers to using best efforts to seek to hire local businesses to pay the proper wages and so forth. So I think that policy is great. It's not in question. But I think what we have here when we talk about this project, the low-income home upgrade project, is not a problem with those contractors that are seeking to do the work, but maybe a problem with how the budget was actually set out in the first place. It seems to me interesting that we have $2 million for the project. 400,000 or 20% are reduced for overhead for management, and that left 1.6 million. And then that added up to exactly 200 homes at $8,000 each. And yet what I hear is that the contractors are being told to work with, I think, $6,500 to do the work. But either way, whenever I made a budget, I always took the total dollars, subtracted the overhead, and then divided the number of the money by the cost per project, the overall dollar left by the cost. And that would tell you how many units you can do, right? And I think that's very relevant because I think there may be a problem right now with trying to complete 200 projects given the remaining budget, because I think it's being discovered that things actually cost a little bit more. And there are indeed actually right now some delays as a result of supply chain backups. Appliances aren't exactly readily available. They're taking weeks and months to get. But that said, I also happen to have been privileged to another discussion, which included Josh Pierce, an employee of RHA. And he met with PCE, he says he met with PCE earlier this week at their request for a forecast of how the project is going. Says that PCE realizes there is not enough money to do 200 homes. They realize they might have to go down to 140 or 150. I have more information, but those were the comments that I received. And I'm wondering, was the budgeting messed up by dividing the wrong number by the wrong number? Or, have we actually run into other difficulties? I don't think the project is with the people, or the problem is with the people doing the work, or even the number of people who are bidding. And by the way, best efforts means you can seek to hire anybody who wants to do the work. Okay, it says that we hope to do these other things: use union, pay prevailing wage, all those things. But it's a very flexible policy. It's a good policy. The difference is how it's implemented. So I think that this program is not suffering from a lack of people who are interested in doing it. I think the budget to do the work on each particular house is too low. And that's why we're not attracting very many people to do the work. Sorry, it's not a question, it's a statement.
That's fine. Is there any other comments from members of the board?
I think best efforts sometimes mean only, as some people interpret it, as opposed to best efforts. Or that was my comment partially.
Okay. I have a public comment from Mark Roost.
Yes, I had forgotten about this slide when I talked the other time. So on the additional contractors needed for the EV Ready program, and possibly for the low-income upgrade 2 program also, there's a spinoff of Reynolds Electric called cyber switching. And what they do can typically cuts the cost of setting up charging infrastructure in half if there's 4 or more charging units needed. So in situations of multi-unit housing or where someone's rich and they want to do 5 chargers or something, the idea is you use one primary circuit from the panel to the place where the cars are going to be charged, and then you have a switch that rotates among 4 actual charging units and high level 2 charging, and each one of them on a typical usage level, each one of them can bring a car up to the 80% or whatever in 2 hours, in less than 2 hours. And then they go about and bring it to the point at which it starts to taper off, and then they go back around in rotation again to actually top it off. And this prevents capacity charges, and it gets everybody taken care of. And because you're only using one primary circuit instead of 4, that's where the cutting the cost in half comes in. And I think that they probably would be happy to do a bunch of those, and they might also be interested in the low-income home upgrade program, although that would be Reynolds Electric rather than Cyber Switching, which is a specialty firm. It's a spinoff of Reynolds Electric, devoted to the Cyber Switch. I think you guys are already talking to them, or they've mentioned that they're already talking to you guys.
Okay, well, what we need is staff to be aware of it. Sounds like they already are, but thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
David Morrow.
Yes, thank you, Chairman DeGolia. Yes, going back to Mr. Roost's comment about CH Reynolds and their cyber switching spinoff company. I deal with CH Reynolds on a daily basis. That company, that spinoff company, I believe does not pay prevailing wage. I think it's a spinoff in order to cut wages and steal wages from electrical workers. That's my interpretation of their spinoff company. It's a way around prevailing wage.
Okay, thanks, David. I'm sure staff can deal with that. I don't see any other comments on this matter, and this was just an informational update. So we are going to move on to the next item, which is an update on the DEAI process.
Thank you, and Shayna Barnes will be presenting this.
Thank you, Jan. My name is Shayna, and I will be giving the Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion, or DEAI, update for you all today. So we'll start off with some background and review of the selection of the DEAI consultant. Then I'll provide a little bit more information about the selected consultant, GCAP Services. I'll provide a review of the deliverables as outlined in the RFP. And then I'll provide a project status update focusing on the development of the DEAI survey, and then also review some next steps. So the DEAI RFP was released as a competitive solicitation in early May 2021. Responses were due in mid-June 2021, and staff received 8 proposals, 7 of which were complete. The board DEAI subcommittee interviewed the top 3 finalists in early and mid-July, and staff posed additional questions to the top 2 finalists in early August. The board subcommittee and staff had follow-up meetings with the top 2 finalists in late September and early October, and the consensus was reached by the board subcommittee on the top consultant of GCAP Services in the middle of October, and the board approved the contract with GCAP Services at the board meeting in October. So here's some information about the selected consultant, GCAP Services, and Rosales Business Partners, who is the subcontractor for this engagement. So GCAP Services is a minority business enterprise, or MBE, certified professional consulting firm headquartered in Costa Mesa, California. 75% of their employees are minority and or women, and they have over 22 years experience providing management, assessment, benchmarking, training, and support in a wide variety of DEAI work areas. They were hired by the CPUC to help implement their supplier diversity program, and they provide overall strategic and compliance related support services to ensure that the CPUC's supplier diversity program fully complies with all applicable regulations. Other projects that they have worked on include working for SANDAG, or the San Diego Association of Governments, on their DEI department and social equity statement. And they provided strategic and compliance related support services to ensure that SANDAG fully complies and adopts best practices related to disadvantaged business enterprises, small businesses, and DEI compliance. They also worked with Caltrans to conduct a disparity study on the utilization of minority and women-owned businesses in their contracting. And they also worked with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California on their diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting services strategic plan. The subcontractor for this engagement is Rosales Business Partners, as I mentioned previously. RBP is a women-owned San Francisco-based consulting firm focused on DEAI regarding internal and external workforce policies and programs. Mara Rosales, who is the managing partner of RBP and co-lead on the Peninsula Clean Energy engagement, notably served as general counsel for this SF International Airport earlier in her career. In this role, Ms. Rosales was actively involved in the strategic planning and direction of key SFO projects, including negotiating the airport's precedent-setting project labor agreement, worker retention, and labor peace policies, with a focus to ensure equitable inclusion of minority, women, and economically disadvantaged individuals. In her capacity as an attorney, Ms. Rosales is a subject matter expert in Proposition 209, which, as a public entity, Peninsula Clean Energy must comply with. Other projects that RBP has participated in are supporting the Port of San Francisco with the creation of a racial equity policy and working with SFMTA to conduct a disadvantaged business enterprise availability, utilization, and disparity study. Now I'll move on to the deliverables as outlined in the RFP. The RFP outlined 5 key tasks for our consultant to undertake. The first is to review relevant DEAI legislation and regulatory requirements. And these include Senate Bill 255, General Order 156, and Proposition 209. And these pieces of legislation and regulation affect our hiring and procurement processes. So we're hoping our consultant can provide us, can get grounded in these legislative and regulatory requirements as they impact Peninsula Clean Energy. The deliverable for that first task is a brief report identifying organization-specific areas for improvement and recommendations regarding DEAI legislation and regulatory requirements. The second task is to conduct a DEAI organizational needs assessment, which is the phase of the project that we're in right now. This includes conducting a survey and several interviews with key community stakeholders. And the deliverable for that is a detailed presentation of the results of the survey and priority issues identified and recommendations on the process moving forward based on their findings from the survey. And the board will receive a presentation from our consultant after the DEAI survey is complete and after the needs assessment phase is complete. The third task is to create an organizational DEAI statement or policy. And the deliverable for that task is to have the policy approved by the full board of directors. Task 4 is to update relevant organizational policies, and the deliverable for that is updated versions of the policies are approved by our board of directors. And the policies that we're having our consultant look at are ethical vendor standards, inclusive and sustainable workforce policy, employee handbook, and our strategic plan. And the 5th is the implementation piece. So we hope that our consultant could then create organizational department goals, practices, and metrics to operationalize our DEAI policies. So this is the action plan portion of our project. And the deliverables for that include updated contracting and grant processes, updated processes for designing customer programs and communications, improved organizational performance and regulatory reporting, including General Order 156, updated hiring and HR processes approved and adopted by staff, training plan for PCE board members, staff, and CAC members, and updated specific key performance indicators and staff work plans. So now I'll give a project status update. So the DEAI work began after the board approval of the contract in mid-November, and it started with a kickoff meeting. And at the kickoff meeting, staff and the consultant team agreed to conduct regulatory review, or the task 1, as I previously said on the previous slide, in conjunction with other tasks in the project schedule. And we want the deliverable for task 1 to be informed by the survey phase of the project. So we were originally going to have the deliverable for task 1 be complete before the survey phase, but we felt that the survey phase could provide valuable insight into their regulatory and legislative review. So we decided to hold off on that deliverable until later in the project schedule. We went with the consultant on November 17th to brainstorm a list of stakeholders to send the DEAI survey to. GCAP also started task 1 of the regulatory and legislative review of Prop 209, General Order 156, and Senate Bill 255. And they also started an initial review of the policies and documents in task 4. So that includes our strategic plan, employee handbook, and in policies 9 and 10. So now I will go into a little bit more detail of the survey development for the DEAI needs assessment phase of the project. The majority of the work was work done from mid-December through mid-February was on the development of the DEAI survey. Staff and the contractor decided to have 2 survey types, internal and external, with the internal survey being for staff, former staff, and contractors, and the external survey being for Peninsula Clean Energy board members and alternates, Peninsula Clean Energy Citizens Advisory Committee members, city managers and city sustainability staff, outreach grantees, applicants, and contractors, business organizations, including ethnic chambers of commerce, and trade organizations, and also program participants for people who have participated in our programs. And also other key community stakeholders, including core social service agencies and other nonprofit organizations and county contacts. GCAP provided the first draft of our survey questions in early January, and staff conducted an internal review and met with GCAP on January 7th to discuss initial feedback of the survey questions. Staff asked GCAP to add in more questions that centered environmental justice, energy equity, and democracy into the external facing survey. And we provided GCAP with the report, Building a Just Energy Future, a framework for community choice ag creators to power equity and democracy in California, from the California Environmental Justice Alliance, or CEJA, to use as a resource when coming up with these questions. And we ultimately added assessment questions from the CEJA report that focus on the following 5 subject areas: coordination with local community-based organizations, accessible information and outreach, community-driven local program design, transparent decision-making, and local and state accountability. Staff and the consultant team also started to prepare to meet with the DEAI board subcommittee to review the survey. The team met with the board DEAI subcommittee on January 27th, 2022 to review the definitions of diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, the survey questions, and survey stakeholder groups to be interviewed. At this meeting, the consultant team also reviewed the survey goals, objectives, design, format, and process. GCAP and Peninsula Clean Energy staff incorporated feedback from the board subcommittee into the survey definitions and questions. And then Peninsula Clean Energy staff did 2 more reviews of the survey, one with GCAP on February 4th, 2022, and one with just internal staff on February 8th, 2022. GCAP incorporated final comments from staff, and the survey went live on February 9th, 2022, and it will close after a period of 3 weeks on March 2nd, 2022. And I will pause here for a friendly reminder for all board members and alternates to please fill out the survey by next Wednesday, March 2nd. I'll also send a reminder email tomorrow. We very much value your feedback during this process. We want everyone to feel like they have contributed. So if you have had any issues accessing a survey, you all should have received one, please let me know at sbarnes@peninsulacleanenergy.com, and I'll be sure to send you the survey link. So that way you can include your feedback. It should take about 10 to 25 minutes to complete, depending on how long you would like to spend on the narrative responses of the survey. And then I'll go on to next steps for the project, the immediate next steps for the project. So the immediate next steps for the project include conducting 12 individual interviews with individual stakeholders to supplement the responses that are received through the survey as part of the DEAI needs assessment phase of the project. GCAP will also be monitoring the survey response level and will send periodic reminders to those who have not yet completed the survey. After the survey closes, GCAP will review and analyze the survey results and will draft a report and next steps based on the survey data. GCAP will also complete their analysis of Proposition 209, Senate Bill 255, and General Order 156. In addition to the organizational policies and documents that I mentioned previously, the strategic plan, employee handbook, and policies 9 and 10, GCAP will review additional documents, including our JPA formation documents, employee handbook attachments, family leave policy, standard contract, and solicitation documents, just to name a few. And they will draft recommended revisions to the organizational policies based on our review of these documents and the survey and interview results. So that was a brief overview of the immediate next steps of the project. We will be coming to the board over the next several months with revised policies and report out from the survey process. And that is the conclusion of my report. So thank you all for listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Shana. Comments and questions from members of the board? Donna.
Thank you. Well, you know what? I'm going to defer to Michael, who's co-chairing this with me. I want him to go ahead and speak first, and then I'll wrap up.
Great. Please, Michael.
Thanks so much, Don. I appreciate you, your deferral to me. Of course, this is a team effort and we couldn't have done it without you. I'll say that we're super excited to be moving forward with this project. And I'll say, just referring back to one of the slides around the goals that we're looking to achieve, that while the legislative initiatives that we're looking to be in compliance with is of importance, I would say that conceptually, this project is really about bringing PCE into the most kind of forward-looking DEAI policy and just consideration conceptually as we possibly can get. This work came out as a result of all of the incredible movement that happened as a result of the tragic death of George Floyd about a year and a half ago at this point. And so I want to make sure that we are kind of keeping our eye on that kind of point, that there are significant and important issues that we need to be thinking about, even beyond the legislative concerns that were mentioned in the presentation. And I truly believe that GCAP and this staff can bring those considerations to bear. And again, I really want us to focus on really, I think, the holistic and comprehensive efforts of this DEAI initiative. Let's really bring PCE to the forefront of this conversation around energy and social justice. And I look forward to working with all of you on this. So Don, I would love to hear what you have to say as well.
Well, once again, I'm going to defer to my colleague, Dr. Rod Dasmagbul, because he also is on the committee, and I'll wrap up and if any of my other colleagues, which include, just so everybody's reminded, Carlos Romero has stepped up and been a volunteer on this. Michael is co-chairing it with me. Rod has been involved, and Sam Hindi has also been involved, and I'm just honored to work with them, as well as under the guidance of our amazing Shana Barnes, who has single-handedly taken on this project and elevated it to a level that's been incredibly impressive. So turning it over to Ron.
Great. Thanks, Don. I'll keep my comments brief, but I just want to say thank you to Shana and all your hard work, everybody on staff, everybody that's on the committee. We really put some work in. Really looking into diving deep from the definitions all the way through the questions that were provided on the survey. I think, and I agree with Michael as well, that we are setting precedents for the next steps for clean energy and other organizations such as PCE in terms of doing our DEAI work. So again, I just want to say thank you to everyone doing work, and these are just smaller steps to the larger goal, and can't wait to see this whole project come through. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rod. Donna, did you want to add more comments?
Sam, I see again, Sam and Carlos, I don't know if they have anything to say. I just want to echo the hard work that the staff has done, but I also want to acknowledge here that it was our CAC who originally took on this work of thinking about the implications of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, and how that and, you know, sort of brought to our attention and raised and elevated this whole policy to us. And I think it shows the incredible value and the incredible insight and sort of pulse on our community that our CAC has, and why the participation of those individuals and advisory role to our board is so critical and important. And without sort of their initial jumping into this, we probably or may not have, you know, come to embrace this work and put the resources into this work that were needed in order to, as Michael says, be the leading energy company in this space and set the bar very, very high and create an organizational document and processes that can be looked upon by other CCAs as a model. So I just thank everyone for their hard work and patience with this. It's not easy work and it takes a long time. Anyone who's interested, we can always fill them in on more things along the way. We can get more updates, but it is moving forward. So thank you all.
Great, thanks, Donna. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. And just a couple of words to kind of can't thank Donna and Michael for their leadership on the subcommittee, as well as Shana and staff. You know, we had, while we were deliberating on this and researching it, we had many opportunities to, if you will, to take the easy course, but the subcommittee and staff wanted to come out at the end with a policy that is meaningful, which basically what Michael touched upon. We were not trying to check the box and just do what the, you know, legislative requirement is, but we wanted to really have a meaningful DEI policy, and hopefully that would be the end result that will make us all proud of what Peninsula Clean Energy will be setting the standard, if you will. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks for your hard work. Julia.
I just wanted to briefly thank the subcommittee and staff for all your work on this. Clearly, you are really taking this process in a very thoughtful way and trying to make sure it's a really meaningful policy. And you know, I know in previous meetings, we on the board have supported this and thought it's really important, and just to see it unfold and how well it's doing and how much work you're putting into it. I just wanted to thank you. It's obviously very, very important work. So I know you're all busy. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I want to second that. I think that we all recognize that this is important work. There are two things that I think are particularly important. One is it's really important for you to give us an update so that the board stays connected, and because you guys are really connected, right? Because you're the subcommittee and the staff are really dealing with this, and the board is observing it. And we participated in the survey, but we're sure that you are going to be engaging us. There's no doubt about that. And I want to support you in addition to giving periodic reports like this, because I think it's important to keep us updated and connected. I want you to feel that you can take the time you need to take. You have to do this right. This is a really big deal, and it's a hard issue to deal with. And I really think you should take the time and not hesitate to be as thorough as you need to be. Rick Pcia.
Thank you very much. I want to say also that I think this is great work. This is way overdue, okay? This type of recognition, this type of clearing the path for equity is just what we have to do. We've had to do it for a long time. I want to say I'm very proud of PCE for taking this on. The city of San Mateo has also made steps. We have an interior task force in our office, making sure that our hiring practices are also in compliance with not this exact policy. We have our own policy, they're developing it, and they're going to make sure we follow that. But also, the council has appointed a task force, a public task force, to do this work in the public realm also. So thank you all very much for all the work that you've done. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Jan.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. I'd like to thank the board for their support on this, but I particularly want to call out Shayna. She's doing an amazing job on this, and it's all, it's all new to all of us, and she's really put her arms around it and working very closely with the consultants and making sure that we're doing the best job possible. And others on staff, Kirsten, Matthew, Rutherford, who else am I reading? Have been working hard on this as well. So, but I really wanted to know that Shayna's taking this very seriously and she's doing a terrific job. So, and thank you all for recognizing that.
Great. Laura.
I just gonna sing along with the chorus here. Really excited about what this will bring forward, and to build on Chair DeGolia's comment about thoroughness. I think we're working on some of this in my day job, as Rick mentioned, these things are very complex, but sometimes the barriers to access are in plain sight, and they're far reaching. So I would encourage the committee and staff to be really holistic about what your findings are, and maybe reach all the way back towards the educational system. I work in the STEM field, and one of our industry trade partners has taken on a DEI initiative, and they have multiple pillars that they're looking at, that my company is supporting, everything from K through 12 education all the way up to board identification of people for boards of directors. So I would encourage you all to look at this and not leave any stone unturned, and whatever you find, I really encourage you to bring that forward. I think we need to look at the hard truths of what we've created and put in the way of allowing everyone to have access to amazing careers in this field. So thank you for your work and your courage and your voice.
Great. And any other comments on this? Okay, I don't see any more comments. The last item on our agenda tonight is board member reports. Does anybody have a report? Okay, I don't see any reports. Motion to adjourn is accepted. We have had a short meeting. This will make up for a long meeting, which I'm sure we will have at some point. Thank you, everybody. Nice to see all of you, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Good night.